Okay, so this is the second step of the demonstration I started on Monday night, and this should allow me to work on it a third time in class on next Monday night. All right, so right now it's a good time to redraw if you're, well, you're probably going to find some mistakes, at least I always do. So this is a really good time to redraw because your eye is fresh, and I'm just going to kind of try to get things back together, especially over here. This was a part that I felt like I could not even understand what was going on. So this is the top of the, and then there's a like a shadow down in there, and then the top of the next fold, and then this, I don't know, I just have too much space over here. So that's a good question of how to deal with that. So there's different ways you might choose to deal with that, and I'm going to choose to deal with it at this moment by ignoring it, even though I'm not sure that is, probably I'll be sorry. Usually problems I ignore, I eventually become sorry about. Okay, and so it's really easy to erase the charcoal, and unless you're working on white paper, you do not have to worry about redrawing in charcoal. You can do that anytime you want. What you really don't want to do is redraw with a pastel, because if you make a mistake, I say if, but you know, when, for me at least, is probably more accurate. When I make a mistake, like it's hard to get rid of a drawing mistake if it's drawn in charcoal. I mean, in pastel. So always draw in charcoal. Another thing is you can try to like just sort of see, especially organic shapes, you can see them as a series of straight lines that create that rounded edge. So why is that better? Well, I think it's actually more accurate and keeps it from looking like it's a fake manufactured item. But also it gives your eye a place to travel instead of a circle that's just almost featureless. This gives you a series of points that your eye can travel on. So I almost always do this. Wow, okay, so many mistakes. All right, so this comes here. It goes like that. This is a little rounder. This needs to move over a little bit, that stem. Now, sometimes there's just stuff you can't fix, and you just either got to accept it or, you know, say, okay, next time I'll try to get it better. Or, you know, I've had cases with the drawing so bad that I had to start over because I could not fix it. Usually it's something to do with perspective for me. And it hasn't happened in a while. Maybe I've just gotten more lazy and don't start over when I should, but I have such vivid memories of the last time I had to start over. And you know what? It was a really long time ago. But if you get really desperate, you can use a dry paintbrush to wipe things off and off your paper so that you can work on it again. That is a better solution than rubbing it down into the paper with like a rag or something. It's like you're literally wiping it off. So the reason I think I prefer to have an accurate drawing that then I can work on. I feel that I feel like it helps make me looser because I don't have to worry like, oh, where is that shadow? Where is this shadow? Because I've drawn it pretty well. And I think that, you know, the longer you're a painter, that you just get looser. It's just part of the deal. And and looseness comes, I think, from acquiring knowledge about the world. That was unexpected. Um, yeah, so I feel like, you know, a lot of people kind of worried about getting looser. It's just something that happens. And if you want to do things that would facilitate looseness, just, you know, use blockier materials. That's what other teachers have done that were trying to get their students to paint more loosely, like either force them to use great big brushes or great big palette knives. So really, actually, not even palette knives, more like, whoops, over here, more like the kind of knives that you would, spackle knives or something. Oh, golly. Okay, well, like I say, there's some, like these spaces. Oh, that's it. This space is much smaller. So I don't know. Can I bring that light over? And then this will make that spot wider, and I have to get my paintbrush, which I have to keep over here so my cat doesn't eat them. Oh no. Okay, so like this, I can try to, now I have sprayed this, but you can see how much pastel dust I'm able to get off. And I guess if I was really concerned, I would spray it again before I tried to work on it. But kind of makes you wonder what the point of the fixative is, doesn't it? Just comes off pretty much. Okay, so and the whole yellow stripe thing, I'm gonna put that on later. Okay, so onion. Yes, I noticed you were not tipping enough somehow, so I need to tip you more. And maybe I just need this to be over more. And this, I think, for instance, my objects are a little over life size. You can't tell that because you can't really see it. And I'm sorry, I can't quite manage to get my photograph to exactly match my pastel. But one thing about drawing just slightly over life size, it makes your stuff look huge. So it's better maybe to either draw a lot over life size or at life size or less than life size, enough that it doesn't just look like you have puny fruit. Anyway, that's like I say, kind of an aesthetic decision. All right, well, I'm going to start on the background, I think. I still feel like things aren't really dark enough, and I'm telling that by squinting. And what I want to see is, I want to be sure I can see the white on the cloth standing out against that background. So I'm just trying some stuff back here. This kind of looks better in real life, but it doesn't look better here. So let me see, maybe I need to turn my light down a little bit. Well, that did nothing. Just would like to clarify that did absolutely nothing. All right, let's try this. Nothing. Oh, okay. Oh, live and learn. I think I have to turn my light off and then turn it on with my, oh, that looks a lot better, but I can't see anything. All right, I don't know. Maybe this, oh, you know, how come nothing ever works right? Okay, let me try turning on this light. No, that won't work either. Good light. Good light. I'm going to have to edit this video. Oh, okay, now this is better. All right, don't ask me why it worked that time, because I cannot answer that question. So when you're painting, if you can have a lot of light on your still life, I mean on your what you're working from, like a still life, but then not as much light on your painting, then you will tend to not make things too light. Too much light, I'm sorry, too dark. When you have too much light on your painting, you tend to paint too dark. Um, so it's nice to have your pastels more lit up than I do right now because it's kind of hard for me to see them. But it's more important that I not have my paper too lit up, and also the computer still kind of adjusts the whiteness of it, so I don't think you get exactly an accurate thing of what I'm doing. Okay, so I tend to not use gray, at least not the first time over, but I've been using it more lately. I tended not to use it much at all, but I do sometimes now. I still hardly ever use black. I always think that the fixative and the super dark blue colors help me make things that are dark enough. Oops. Yeah, so if you redraw, try to pay attention a little bit to what you redrew. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to make all of the shadows the same darkness for now. And then I'll come back and put the variations in. So I consider this the second time over. This is like my second lay-in. So I'm not really breaking things down too much into smaller sections of color. I'm just trying to make everything better. And I try to avoid breaking things down into smaller sections of color until I feel like I can't make it better any other way. So now, okay, I'm feeling better about this. So that's what I'm always asking myself: did I make it better or worse? And I hate it when the answer is worse, but sometimes it is. But the thing is, better is a better answer than like sometimes I think people are like, did I make it perfect or not? And better or worse is a lot better kind of a thing to work on, because see, so now worse because I didn't keep that side darker. So and now better again, except I don't think that's the right color. So I think I put this purple in and now it kind of got covered up, so I want that purple back. And so now I'm going to say better, and yeah, there is this orange reflection in there in the onion. What you have to do is squint when you look at reflections, and then when you squint at your photograph, then you also squint and see how it looks when you're squinting, see if how that reflection looks, and then squint at your own painting to see if you got it correct, because the reflections and stuff, people tend to make them too light, and then yeah, and then they don't look right in their painting. They stand out too much. But if you have squinted at it, you'll know if it's right. And so I've got the darkest dark, which needs to come over here a little bit more, I think. So what that did just now, it wasn't really my aim exactly, but it started to soften this. So the bananas are in discrete planes, but the onion is curving around. So to make something look round, you have to have at least light, half light, and shadow. And then you can have the other things like the highlight, maybe the darkest dark in there, some reflected light, which again you would want to squint to be sure that you weren't exaggerating it. Yeah. So this kind of, I don't usually blend with my finger, but by that color just happened to kind of blend things a little bit right there. And what happens now at this stage also is I don't know if this is going to be good or not, but I'm just going to try it. I tend to work a little longer on each area than I did the first time. So I'm doing, I'm spending longer on this onion than I did the first time over. And I have to say I was trying, and I forgot right now that I was trying to keep the pastels I'm using like on the outside of my box. And I did find that it was much easier to clean up my box and get everything organized again with the pastels in the right color spot. And that's how I keep my box organized. I'll take a picture of it sometime. I keep it organized by color families. Okay, so yeah, so that's, I feel like I definitely made this better. I took it a long way. In fact, I got to do something up here, but I took it a long way from where it was, and maybe I worked on it too long. And you saw that I made some mistakes, and you saw that then I corrected them, and that's the good thing about mistakes. Whoops, what are you doing? That's a good thing about mistakes is it helps you to see what's right. So every mistake you make, which I kind of hate to call them that even, everything you do that's not exactly what you want helps you to see further along to what you want. So I would try really hard not to be freaked out about mistakes, so-called mistakes, because really they're just part of your drawing path. All right, so something's not quite, maybe I just need to, it's a little too tall in there, that little onion thingy. Mostly when I was an art student in the beginning of my career, when we were only allowed to paint from things we set up, and class was only once a week, and it was oil painting, and it took forever. It's like all I painted was onions, because onions were the only thing that would last, you know, for like a month, because when it's an oil painting, it takes a long time. Okay, so now I do want to divide this into the three things. So I don't quite know, I'm gonna start here, and then I'm gonna go to the medium and then to the dark area. And that, it's not a rule, so don't feel like that's a rule, but I did spray it, so that makes everything darker. So I'm thinking that maybe I should start with the lightest side of the banana. Sometimes after I spray it, I sort of think of myself as like, okay, I'm bringing out the lights now. I'm going to bring up the lights so that it got dark from being sprayed. And sometimes if you start in the dark areas, what happens is you actually make them lighter because the pastels you have, now that they've gotten darker by the spray, the actual pastels in the box aren't as dark. So yeah, I know that's kind of neon, so but still, I'm going to try to do the shadow side of it. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. So another thing I want to talk about just for a second is if I kept doing strokes like this along my banana, and truthfully, it doesn't much matter right now what way my strokes go because I can't really actually, in fact, concentrate on everything at once. But these strokes are called with the form. And so now my banana looks very like, you know, long and linear. And what I want to do, though, as I go on with this painting, is I want to do some strokes that go across the form. So these are the across the form strokes. Not enough. Let's try dark green. So this is how it goes for me. Whatever crosses my mind, I try. I try not to edit out my ideas. I just am going to try them, and then I'm going to see how that goes. Okay, and so I do think it's a little lighter up here at the top than down in here, so I'm going to see if I can, well, I think I could even use the same color. So even though I use the same color here that I used here, it doesn't show up the same because it's over other colors. And then I kind of wonder, maybe I got rid of that too much. And so here now I'm doing strokes that go across the form so that it's not all just, it's like the drawing I feel like goes with the form in the same way that this is a drawing and it shows you the direction that the cloths are moving. But now I need to show you that the cloth also is doing this, moving across. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm thinking about. And this is true on people or anything. So when you're drawing people like arms and stuff, you don't want, I think, you don't want everything to be just down, 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 because then I feel like it gets kind of this spaghetti look. So, okay, so that is still maybe a little bit lighter right in there. So I actually, except I wasn't always taking the colors out of, of course that's the problem with that idea, is that you can drop them. I haven't really used very many colors, and I think what I'll do at the very end, I'll take a picture of my pastel box with the colors I've used here on the side. Okay, so now my other banana, I feel like, looks a little better now that the other banana got worked on. All right, so there's a little bit of light right here, a little bit of light right here, a little bit of light right in there. I forgot to do this, and actually I decided this was in the wrong place, so. And I'm gonna have to, just gonna go ahead and do it with this darker color, and then I can bring it lighter up in there later. All right, and then I've got that great big old thing sitting on the end there. That's just a start on that. So like here, if I can't make this dark enough, probably this is too dark, maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't care. But when you can't make something dark enough, it could be, that was an incredible catch I just made of that pastel. It could be that it's just other things are too light. So, or did I just say that backwards? If you can't make something dark enough, it might be that the things around it are too dark. If you can't make something light enough, it could be that the things around it are too light. So it's not always the thing that you think is wrong that is wrong. Look at me, I just drew with my pastel. But. And we haven't really worked on anything long enough yet to talk about edges. And I've been having some interesting thoughts in my own mind about edges and about making different centers of interest in your paintings. And I don't know, I haven't quite worked that out, and I don't think right now is the time to talk about it even. But yeah, I'll talk about it sometime. But this is an edge right there, so it's not like the onion that doesn't have any interior edges. This is an edge. So I'm gonna leave that just like that for now, although God, it's hard to leave it alone. Okay, and this, let's see, what do I want to do? So I don't know, I can really hear a difference in the way this pastel sounds. And that's, I think, because it's my darkest color. It's the really dark blue. And it's, I'm using it, you know, on top now of some other colors. So it has a little bit of a scratchy sound. Okay. All right. So, oh, geez. Okay. So I think I made my fruit better. I just need to put in that little thing. So all my fruits and onions, I think I made better. And so now I want to come back and start working on the fabric. And what is a really good idea when you're working on fabric is to look and see where the hard and soft edges are in the fabric. So I am going to fix my drawing first. I don't want to get too light, so I'm kind of going to start darker than I I had the problem, you know, in step one where I felt like I got too light, so I don't want to have that problem again. And remember, it's harder to get dark colors to cover up a light area because the dark colors are physically harder than the light colors. So by starting dark, I hope that I can, you know, build the lights in and not have to go darker again. Okay, so I think I did that down here. So now the next thing I feel like I see is a certain amount of blue. So I'm going to try some blue. This is another example of that. Like, you know, honestly, I think I meant to use this color on the lights, but then when I put it up there by it, suddenly I used it in the dark areas. But this is a good example of these don't look, you know, if I wanted these to be this dark, I would have to keep this even darker. So this color kind of forces me now to make these lighter, but that was my plan anyway, so all's well. Okay, so I'll just try that blue. So one thing I do is I don't make my pressure always the same. So I can add a color but use a slightly different amount of pressure, and then and that affects the way it shows up. So in the beginning, I'm sort of so reckless that I use the same amount of pressure everywhere, but as time goes on, I sort of change my pressure, and it could be like in oil painting, this being kind of sneaky. I would probably think, well, you're being sneaky because you're not sure that's the right color. But still, oil paint, you have an unlimited amount of time to work on stuff. And pastels, you just don't. There's a time comes when you've filled in the paper. Okay, so this crease here is it's actually what's happening is there's a medium, a light, and then a dark, and neither edge is very hard. They're all just a little soft on both sides, and then there's some places where it turns, and those edges are a little harder. So that's what I was just trying to show that. So it's not just one. Oh, good. There, neighbors are taking out the trash now. It's the real world here. And then over here, this is a really soft edge, except there's one little place here that seems like it's a little harder. Okay, and then this is a point, kind of a hard point right in there, and then it catches the light here, and then you can really see the half light right in this little area here. And then the deep shadow. So I do want to make sure this is behind this, but there is like light that kind of drifts over. So I'm just going to do some of that, and that wasn't enough. And then up here, I really want to soften that edge as it goes off the page, because I don't want your eye to be drawn off the top of the page. And then here, right along here on the painting, that's quite a crisp edge. So I'm gonna crisp that up. But the thing is, I don't want it to be so in focus right behind my onion, because I want to be sure the onion comes in front. So I'm not going to make that as hard an edge down here behind the onion. And that's that has been the thing I've tried to do for a long time, is make decisions about edges. Now this is a decision that's not true, because you can see in the photograph that is a crisp edge that comes all the way down. But, you know, what is truth? So as an artist, whoa, that was too dark. Also, a lot of times when I do something that's kind of not accurate like that, I'll just go all the way up with it. Yeah, this is so much darker here in real life. What am I going to do about that? When am I going to solve this problem? Anyway, if I do something I'm not feeling good about like that, and even that's not quite right yet, I will just go ahead and do it all the way up, because I don't want an area that looks different. So even though it's wrong, I'll just keep going with it. So how it is. So let me just see if I can just even make this darker now, because it just doesn't look dark enough on the screen anyway. It doesn't look as dark as So I think I talked a little bit about, you have your first and most important step in your painting is your composition, and then you start drawing, and that is a continuation of composition, because you're trying to get everything on the paper like you want it. And then the next step is light and shadow, which I did. And now, like what I've been doing is working on color. And then after that, as things get a little more finished, then what I start doing is working on texture. So not really working on texture right this minute. Like I say, I can't do everything at once. So I'm just laying in the color, and I'm not thinking about the texture. So still life is not, in fact, the best place to learn about texture. Landscape is the place with the texture, because if you look at this, pretty much everything is really smooth. So you're not going to get, you know, a lot of textural variety. The texture you have in your painting, you have to make up. But in landscape, that's the place to learn about texture. And so each genre, that's why it's good to do more than one thing. You might say, nah, I hate still life. And I'm feeling a little bit that way now, although I'm having fun right this minute. But I've done so many still lifes in my life, and I just can hardly stand to think about doing another one at this moment. But the thing that you learn from still life is composition. So because composition and still life, it's all up to you. It's you know, there's nothing to kind of give you some inspiration. Like if you're doing a portrait, then you might get inspiration just from how the model sits down. If you're doing landscape, you get inspiration from the land. And then, but when you're doing a still life, you have to create the inspiration with your subject that you choose and the arrangement you choose. So landscape is better to learn about texture, and still life is better to learn about composition. Yeah. Okay. And so after you get all the color and the values right, then the next thing you work on is, or at some point you start adding the texture into that. And then what happens, the last thing you do, usually the last thing I do, is I go back and I work on the edges. And edges are the only thing I do that I make up. Like I'm not making up the colors that I see. I feel like I really see them, and then but what I'm doing, especially with pastels, I'm seeing my colors in pieces, not in, because I can't blend them exactly in the same way I would if it was an oil painting. So I'm seeing it in the pieces, like, so I'm saying, okay, oh, I'm going to add some more green. Oh, I'm going to add some more pink. Oh, I'm going to add some more blue. And I can't mix those in the same way that I would if I was painting, where I would mix them on my palette. So here in pastels, this is my palette. Yeah. All right, so yeah, so composition, drawing, value and color, and then texture and edges. And each thing that you work on in each genre that you pick has its own thing that gives you learn the most from it. So that's one reason you should do everything. Portraiture, it's drawing, because nobody really knows unless you're doing perspective, and even then a lot of people don't know anything about it. They'll just know it looks wrong, they won't know why. But unless you're doing perspective, like right here, maybe I don't want that in there, that little light. Maybe that's better left out. So I can just take it out for now, and I can always put it back in later if I wanted to. Okay, now see, I keep losing my train of thought because it's hard to have a train of thought. Okay, so portrait is drawing because people know when a face is drawn wrong. We are very familiar with faces, and we know. And we're very familiar with seeing very incremental elements of a face that make us able to recognize people. And that's why portraiture is so hard. It doesn't take much to make it not look like someone. So portraiture for drawing, still life for composition, landscape for texture, and I guess figure drawing would be for gesture. And the other thing is, at least I have just never wanted to have to say, well, I'm sorry, I can't do that, because I'm not very good at portraiture. Unless I use a grid, then I can get it pretty accurate, but portraiture is definitely not my strong suit. And I've done a ton of them, so I can pretty well say that, I gave it its best shot. And also, I don't really want to be a portrait artist. I don't want to have to please people in that way. Yeah. And I told my teacher once when I was about, I don't know what, 17 or something, I told him quite confidently that I hated landscape. And he told me I was way too young to say that. And I've sort of felt that way all my life, actually, although I did just say I hate portraiture. But that, there was a little time there when I was doing all those portraits of people in Italy when I was loving it. I got sick of it, but I was loving it again in the beginning. Yeah, so try not to put limits on yourself by deciding there's certain things you don't want to do. Unless, like certain of us you've done so many still lifes. But you know what? I'm kind of having a good time because I can really focus on all this variety of color and stuff. And it's just, of course it's a photograph, but it's just sitting here. All right, I don't know how long. I don't know when I started. I don't know how long I've been going. But this is, okay, so one thing I am going to do is I'm going to draw in where these go. And these were completely made up, just in an effort to show you how shadows from trees on snow would go over the oh, look at that, all equal. Don't you love that? I love that. All equal spaces is what I'm saying, between the folds. All right, let's see, what can I do about that? I can move that light over a little more. So I'm just going to move this over more. I thought I was good. I thought I could put those in, and no. But see, I'm glad that I saw that mistake. That I had these are just too evenly spaced. And maybe what I can do in the background too is bring that in a little more. Another thing that works really or is really helpful, and I learned it from someone in class, is to take a photograph of your work and then look at it. And weirdly, I feel like I can see my mistakes better in the photograph than I often can on the painting. Another thing we used to do in class, because there wasn't room enough to back up, is we used a mirror. And so those are things that work too. You want to be sure that you don't overuse them, or you'll just have the same problem that your eye gets dull to it. All right, so I'm just going to start these guys dark. I think yellow and white are two of the hardest colors to do. And the reason why is like on something that's blue, you can have it be light blue and dark blue, and that works just fine. But yellow things are really not like light yellow and dark yellow, and white things are not really light white and dark white. So what I think is, I think you really show people the color in the light area. So this is going to be my light parts. And I added these yellow lines in Photoshop. That's why they're so clunky. They weren't really there. Okay, so let's just see. So that's too much like the color of the white part of the cloth. So let's just see what else. So maybe in there it could be a little more of that green. A little more of that. Yeah, and you know, maybe I didn't do a good enough job on these to make it doable here, actually. Okay, well, I'm not gonna obsess about this right now, because this would be something I could do the next time over. Like I say, I feel like I made it better, so I'm gonna stop, and then what I'll do is I'll work on this again Monday night. So thank you very much for your time and patience.